It was a bright and peaceful day on Earth when everything changed. The sky, once clear and blue, turned dark as huge ships appeared, blocking out the sun. They looked like massive shadows floating above the cities. People on the streets stopped in their tracks, staring up in confusion and fear. They had never seen anything like it before. For a moment, the world stood still, unsure of what was happening. Then the silence was broken. Without warning, the ships released a wave of energy that hit the cities below. Buildings shook as if they were made of paper. Glass windows shattered, sending thousands of sharp pieces into the air. People screamed and ran for cover, but there was nowhere to hide. The energy beams destroyed everything in their path, from cars to houses to entire streets. The once peaceful world was now in chaos. In the skies above, the alien ships hovered like predators watching their prey. Their weapons were far more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. It was like a nightmare that had come to life. Cities that had been home to millions were now nothing but ruins, burning under the alien attack. The humans were caught off guard. No one had ever prepared for something like this. Governments scrambled to react, but it was too late. The aliens had already taken control. The military tried to fight back, but their weapons were no match for the alien technology. Fighter jets shot at the ships, but the lasers from the alien crafts tore them apart like paper. The people on the ground could do nothing but watch in horror as their world was torn apart in one city after another. The same thing happened. People tried to escape, but the aliens didn't stop. They had come to conquer, and they made it clear that nothing would stand in their way. In moments, entire countries fell into darkness. The lights went out, and the streets became empty. The world had been turned upside down in the blink of an eye. But there were those who refused to give up. In the midst of the chaos, a group of humans, leaders from all over the world, met in secret. They gathered in underground bunkers, far from the alien invaders, to make a plan. They knew that aliens had the power to destroy everything, but they also knew humanity had something that the aliens did not. A relentless will to survive. As the aliens continued their attacks, humans everywhere began to fight back in small ways. Some used old weapons, while others built makeshift traps. There was no large-scale military response yet, but the human spirit was not broken. People refused to be conquered without a fight. The aliens, however, seemed to have no interest in fighting a long war. Their mission was simple: destroy the planet and move on. They had been to countless worlds before, wiping out everything in their path. Earth was just another planet to them. They didn't know what they were up against. The invaders had no idea that humanity's strength didn't come from technology or weapons, but from their hearts. In the middle of the chaos, there was a moment of calm. The aliens paused for a moment, observing their work. They saw the humans running and hiding, but they didn't understand why the humans weren't surrendering. It was as if they didn't know they were beaten. The aliens had never encountered a species so determined, so full of life, that even in the face of certain destruction, they kept fighting back. On Earth, in the underground bunkers, the leaders of humanity finally decided it was time to make their move. They knew they couldn't fight the aliens with brute force, but they had one thing left: a secret weapon. For years, scientists and engineers had been working in silence, building a weapon that could turn the tide of the battle. It wasn't ready yet, but it had to be now. Time was running out, and the aliens weren't going to stop until Earth was completely destroyed. They began working on the plan. The secret weapon had to be deployed, and they had to do it fast. It was a risk, but it was their only hope. It would be humanity's last stand. The aliens, unaware of the weapon being prepared below the surface, continued their destruction. They believed their victory was inevitable. The Earth was weak, and they were strong. But what the aliens didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this day long before they arrived. The secret weapon was humanity's ace in the hole, and it was time to use it. As the aliens prepared for their final assault, they thought they had won. But Earth was far from giving up. Humanity was far from beaten. The attack had caught them by surprise, but now the humans were ready. And when the time came, they would show the invaders just how wrong they were. The battle for Earth seemed lost. The alien forces had wiped out cities, and humanity was on the brink of defeat. The world's leaders knew they couldn't fight back the invasion with traditional methods. They had no choice but to put their faith in something that had been kept secret for years, a weapon that could change the course of history. Deep beneath the surface of the Earth, in underground bunkers hidden far away from the aliens' radar, scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked tirelessly on the weapon. It wasn't a weapon of destruction in the way the aliens expected, but it was something far more dangerous, the ability to turn the tide of battle in an instant. The weapon wasn't like anything the world had ever seen. It wasn't a bomb or a missile, but something much more powerful. A piece of technology so advanced that even the alien invaders couldn't comprehend its potential. It had been in development for years, buried in secret labs under the mountains, away from prying eyes. Only the top officials knew about its existence, and now it was humanity's only hope. As the alien ships continued their assault, wreaking havoc on Earth's surface, the humans were scrambling. There were no large armies left to fight back. The major cities were gone, and most of the military had already been decimated. But inside the bunkers, there was a quiet resolve. The secret weapon wasn't just a last resort. It was the key to humanity's survival. But even the humans in the bunkers knew the risks. If they failed, if the weapon didn't work, Earth would be lost forever. The aliens had proved they were ruthless and efficient, leaving no room for mistakes. There was no second chance in the moments between the alien assaults. As humanity hid from the overwhelming firepower above, whispers of hope began to spread through the underground bases. It was a quiet hope, but it was there. The weapon had been tested in secret, and all signs pointed to its success. If everything went according to plan, it would disrupt the alien invasion and force them to retreat. The weapon, dubbed the Pulse, was designed to harness Earth's natural energy in a way that had never been done before. Scientists had discovered a way to tap into the planet's core, channeling the Earth's magnetic fields and energy sources into a concentrated force that could not only damage the aliens' technology but also send a powerful electromagnetic pulse across the entire planet, disabling their ships and rendering their weapons useless. But it wasn't just about the weapon itself. The pulse was part of a larger plan. Humanity had to use it at the perfect moment, when the alien forces were concentrated in one area. If the pulse was used prematurely, it could fail, and the aliens would retaliate even harder. If it was used too late, humanity would be too weak to survive. Timing was everything. Inside the command center of the bunker, General Roberts, one of the few remaining high-ranking officers, watched the screens intently. The aliens' ships were still above, moving over the devastated cities, hunting for survivors. But Roberts knew that there was still time. The pulse wasn't ready, but it would be soon. It had to be. How much longer? Roberts asked, his voice calm but filled with urgency. 5 minutes, sir. one of the technicians replied. The energy fields are stabilizing. We'll be able to fire in 5 minutes. Roberts nodded. It was the longest 5 minutes of his life. Every moment that passed felt like an eternity. Outside, the alien ships continued their assault, not knowing that their victory was about to be shattered. They thought humanity was finished, but the truth was, the real fight was only just beginning. Across the globe, in the scattered remaining human settlements, survivors gathered in small groups, holding on to the faint hope that the weapon would work. They had no idea what was happening below ground, but they knew one thing: if humanity didn't fight back, the world would be lost. The pulse was humanity's final gamble, and it was about to be unleashed. At the command center, the countdown had begun. The weapon, a massive underground array of machines, was now fully charged. The technicians were ready to initiate the sequence. The air in the bunker was thick with tension. The fate of the planet rested on the next few minutes. One wrong move, and everything could be lost. Initiating pulse sequence, the technician announced. The ground beneath their feet vibrated as the pulse began to activate. The energy from Earth's core surged into the machine, flowing through the cables and coils like lightning. The hum of power filled the air, and everyone in the bunker felt the immense force building. Firing in 3, 2, 1. A blinding flash of light erupted from the machine, sending a wave of energy surging upwards. It tore through the Earth's crust, shooting into the sky like a beacon of defiance. For a moment, everything stopped. The world held its breath. Above, the alien ships, who had been watching Earth burn, suddenly froze. Their systems began to flicker and glitch. The ships shook, and a high-pitched alarm sounded in their command centers. The pulse had hit them. The electromagnetic wave disabled the alien technology, rendering their weapons useless and their shields powerless. One by one, their ships began to fall, their once impressive superiority now a broken shadow of its former self. Humanity's weapon had worked. The aliens had no idea what had hit them, but this was only the beginning. The fight was far from over. Now, humanity had a chance, and they weren't going to let go of it. The alien fleet had always seen itself as invincible. For centuries, they had conquered countless worlds with ease. Their technology was unparalleled, their strategy flawless, and Earth had been just another small, insignificant planet in their eyes. It was only a matter of time before humanity fell beneath the weight of their might. But as the alien ships began to falter, something they had never anticipated started to happen in the heart of their largest flagship. Supreme Commander Zither stood before the control panel, his 6 alien eyes scanning the screens. The flashing red alerts and the chaotic mess of damaged systems only confirmed his greatest fear. The humans, those pathetic creatures who had been struggling for survival, had done the unthinkable. They had turned the tide. "What is happening?" Zither demanded, his voice low and full of a rage he had never felt before. We don't know, Commander," a trembling officer replied. "The pulse. It has affected us. Our ships. They're losing power. Weapon systems offline. Shields gone." He paused, looking up at Zither. "We are vulnerable." Zither's multiple eyes narrowed in disbelief. The pulse. The humans had somehow unleashed a force that had crippled their entire fleet. The very technology that had once made them unstoppable was now useless against Earth's desperate counterattack. He had never faced an opponent who could do this. His species had always prided themselves on being the apex predators of the universe. But now, Earth had shown that they were not as helpless as they had assumed. His thoughts raced. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive, and now it was clear that they would have to rethink everything. They had not only attacked a planet, they had provoked something far greater, an enemy that would not bow down. Get me. Status report on the fleet's condition, Zither barked, stepping away from the panel. His mind was already working on a solution. But one thing was certain. They could not allow the humans to win. If Earth was allowed to recover, it would only be a matter of time before the humans would retaliate with more than just their weapon. We've lost 30% of our fleet, another officer reported, this time in a voice tinged with fear. The pulse's impact is more severe than we anticipated. Communication systems are down, and we're struggling to regain control. Many ships are attempting to retreat. Retreat, Zither thundered. We do not retreat, we conquer. We are the supreme race. Despite his anger, Zither knew the truth. They were cornered. And in that moment of realization, he knew that if they didn't act quickly, Earth would change the balance of power forever. The humans were no longer just a minor species. They had become a significant threat. As Zither paced back and forth, his mind began to formulate a new plan. He called for a meeting with his top generals, determined to figure out a way to crush Earth's resistance once and for all. They had to regain control, or the galaxy would see humanity as something more than just an insignificant blip on the radar. And that could not happen. Meanwhile, on Earth, the human resistance had begun. To celebrate their success, the pulse had given them a brief moment of triumph, but they knew the war was far from over. The aliens were regrouping, and they would come back with even more force. The time for celebrating was over. Humanity needed to prepare for the real fight ahead. Back in the underground bunkers, General Roberts watched as the reports of alien retreat began to flood in. He could see the flickers of hope in his soldiers' eyes, but he remained focused. The pulse had worked, but it was only a temporary setback for the invaders. Humanity had a long road ahead, and they couldn't afford to get complacent. We have to hit them while they're weak, Roberts said, addressing his commanders. We know their technology is vulnerable now, but we need to be quick. We can't let them regroup. We've been given a chance, and we need to take it. But deep down, Roberts knew the danger they faced. The alien fleet was not one to back down easily. If Earth didn't act decisively, the invaders would only grow stronger, and then, in a moment of clarity, it struck him. The aliens had underestimated humanity once, but they would never make that mistake again. If Earth was to survive, it had to send a message that could reach the entire galaxy. Prepare the next phase, Roberts ordered. We're not just going to fight them on our terms. We're going to show them that they made the biggest mistake of their lives by attacking Earth. And once we do that, they'll never come back. On the alien flagship, Commander Zither was no longer pacing. He had a plan. His pride had been wounded, but the aliens were not without resources. They had one more option: the annihilation of Earth's surface, using the planet's own resources against it. If they couldn't crush the humans, they would scorch the planet beyond recognition. Forcing them to surrender, his generals were silent, waiting for his command. Zither, with all the cold fury of a being who had never failed, finally spoke. We're going to break them. Earth will burn, and the humans will know their place. The alien fleet was not retreating, not completely. Instead, they were preparing for one final, devastating assault, weapon that would use Earth's natural resources against them, turning the planet's own power into a weapon of mass destruction. Zither's mind was now clear. He had been wrong to underestimate humanity, but he would not make that mistake again. Earth would burn, and the humans would remember who they were dealing with as the alien forces moved into position. The humans below, still unaware of the impending doom, began to ready themselves for the next battle. The stage was set for the final confrontation, and neither side was willing to back down. The alien ships hovered in the dark sky, their massive forms blocking out what little sunlight was left. They had regrouped, repaired what they could, and now they were preparing for the final assault. Earth had taken a blow, yes, but it was clear to Zither. Now humans were not going to give up so easily. They had fought back, but the aliens' arrogance was blinding them to the true scale of humanity's defiance. Zither ordered his fleet to position itself around the planet. They would use Earth's own magnetic fields against it, triggering a cataclysmic chain reaction that would break the planet apart. It was a weapon of last resort, but it would ensure that humanity could never rise again. As he looked out into the vast expanse of space, his mind filled with images of the Earth burning, the humans' futile resistance crushed under the might of the alien forces. On Earth, however, something had changed. The initial victory had given humanity a spark of hope, but now the real fight was about to begin. General Roberts and his commanders had prepared for this moment, working tirelessly in the underground bunkers, knowing that the aliens would not stop until they had erased every trace of human life. The pulse had only bought them time, not a permanent victory. "We have one shot at this," Roberts said to his team, his voice steady but urgent. "The aliens have underestimated us, but they won't make that mistake again. We need to strike before they can use their weapon. We hit them with everything we've got." The underground command center hummed with activity. Human soldiers, scientists, and engineers were working side by side, preparing for what could be their final assault. The pulse had shown them that the alien technology was vulnerable, but this was not the time to celebrate. They knew the aliens would strike. Back with everything they had, Robert's plan was bold. He intended to launch a counterattack on the alien fleet, using Earth's remaining weapons, including the last remnants of humanity's most advanced technology. Their chances were slim, but they couldn't wait any longer. If the aliens launched their final weapon, Earth would be gone. They had no choice but to fight back with everything they had. As the world held its breath, the first wave of humanity's counterattack launched. Satellites, long since destroyed, were replaced with new, makeshift orbital defenses that fired powerful lasers into the alien ships, temporarily disabling their shields. It wasn't enough to destroy the fleet, but it was enough to get the attention of the invaders. "What's happening?" Zither growled from his flagship, watching the incoming barrage of lasers from Earth's new defense systems. "How are they still fighting?" The alien commanders, though once confident in their superiority, began to panic. Earth's defenses were stronger than anticipated. They had thought humanity was broken, but the humans were still resisting. They had turned the pulse into something far more dangerous than the aliens had realized. Message of defiance, a warning that no one would forget. On the ground, humanity's resistance spread like wildfire. Every corner of the globe was now fighting back. Small militias formed in the ruins of once great cities, guerrilla groups emerging from the shadows. The survivors, men, women, children, were no longer hiding in fear. They had something to protect: their planet, their homes, their way of life. As the alien ships continued to orbit Earth, Zither called for the final phase of their plan. He knew that Earth was not yet defeated, but the humans would be soon enough. It was time to use their ultimate weapon, the one that would ensure the planet's destruction and bring an end to humanity's defiance. But humanity wasn't finished yet. The final phase of Earth's counterattack was underway, and it was unlike anything Zither had imagined. With the help of scientists, engineers, and whatever remaining resources they had, the humans had built a weapon, something that could rival the alien technology. It was a device that could destabilize the aliens' magnetic fields, rendering their ships powerless, just as the Pulse had done before. But this time, it would be different. It was a weapon made not just to defend, but to destroy. As the alien fleet moved into position to deploy their weapon, humanity's counterattack reached its peak. The weapon code-named Vengeance was ready. A powerful EMP charge. It could disrupt the alien fleet from within, turning their own power against them. The humans had studied the alien technology, and now they were ready to use it against them. In the final moments before the alien fleet could fire its weapon, Vengeance was launched. A burst of light erupted from the Earth's surface, aimed directly at the heart of the alien ships. The Pulse shot through space like a beam of pure fury. The alien ships, already weakened by the Pulse, shuddered as the energy from Earth's weapon collided with their systems. Impossible, Zither screamed, watching in horror as his fleet's weapon systems began to shut down. Their ships, once the pinnacle of technological power, began to crumble under the force of the EMP. The once mighty alien forces were no longer in control. Their once impenetrable shields flickered and failed, and their engines shut down one by one. The tables had turned. The humans had struck back, and this time the aliens were the ones who were vulnerable. Across the globe, the people of Earth watched in awe as the alien ships began to fall from the sky. What had seemed impossible just hours before was now happening. The alien invaders, who had once seemed invincible, were now helpless in the face of humanity's fury. But the victory was not without its cost. Humanity's weapon had drained much of Earth's remaining resources, and the damage was severe. But Earth had won, at least for now. The aliens had been defeated, driven back by the strength and unity of the human spirit. As the alien fleet limped away, Zither swore vengeance. This war was far from over. But for now, humanity had proven one thing: they would never give up. They would never bow down, and they would never be defeated. The alien fleet was in chaos. What had started as a flawless invasion had turned into a desperate retreat. Their once imposing ships, now crippled by Earth's weapons, scattered in every direction. It was hard for Zither, the commander of the alien forces, to grasp what had just happened. His fleet, his pride, was falling apart. A species that had once conquered galaxies now had to flee from a planet they had underestimated. Zither stood at the helm of his flagship, his mind racing. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had not only survived their invasion, but they had fought back with something far more devastating: unity, resourcefulness, and an unrelenting drive to protect their home. The humans had managed to turn their own weakness into strength. They had turned the tables, and now Zither was faced with a decision that no commander should ever have to make. "Commander Zither, we cannot stay. Our remaining ships will not survive another attack," an officer called out, his voice shaky. "We must retreat, or we risk complete annihilation." Zither's multifaceted eyes flickered with fury and reluctance. He had never experienced defeat on this scale. His fleet was broken, and his reputation in the galaxy would be tarnished forever. Retreat was not an option he would ever have chosen. But there was no choice now. Earth had struck a blow that would be felt across the galaxy. This battle was lost, and the aliens had to escape before the humans finished them off completely. "Begin the retreat," Zither ordered. "Set a course. For the outer rim, we will regroup and return. This war is far from over." As his fleet began to retreat into the darkness of space, leaving behind the scorched remnants of Earth's once beautiful surface, Zither's mind burned with rage. This was not the end. The humans had fought well, but they had not won yet. They had no idea the vengeance that awaited them. Back on Earth, the humans stood in silence, watching the alien fleet withdraw into space. The air was thick with relief, but it wasn't a victory they could truly celebrate. The cost had been heavy, and their planet was still reeling from the devastation. Cities lay in ruins, and entire landscapes had been scorched by the relentless assault. But humanity had survived. They had faced extinction and fought back with everything they had. General Roberts stood atop the ruins of what had once been a military command center, looking up at the retreating ships in the sky. The battle wasn't over, he knew that. The aliens would return, and next time, they would come stronger, more prepared. But for now, they had achieved something extraordinary. They had made the invaders fear them. "They won't forget this," Roberts muttered under his breath. He turned to his team, who had gathered around him, their faces a mix of exhaustion and determination. "Neither will we. Earth will rebuild, and we will be ready for whatever comes next." Across the globe, the people of Earth were coming together. Even in the ruins, they were determined to rise from the ashes. The scars of the invasion were deep, but so was their resolve. Earth had proven that it would never bow to any invader. And this time, humanity had won the most important battle, the battle for survival. But deep in space, far from Earth's reach, the alien forces were not idle. Their defeated Earth had shaken them to their core, but it had not broken them. So retreat was only temporary. The aliens would regroup and return with a vengeance. The Supreme Commander knew that the humans had only delayed their destruction, but it would not be long before the aliens came back with overwhelming force. "You underestimate us." "Earthlings," Zither muttered to himself as his fleet disappeared into the void of space. "But when we return, we will not show mercy. You will regret this day." Back on Earth, the celebrations were muted. The victory felt like a fleeting moment of hope, one that might vanish in the face of an even greater threat. Humanity's enemies had learned something about them. They would never give up. But Earth had learned something, too. They had shown that, even in their darkest hour, the human spirit was an unbreakable force. The Earth's leaders met in secret, planning the next steps for the future. They knew the aliens would return. The war was far from over, but humanity had one advantage now. They were no longer afraid. They had stood against a galaxy-dominating force and survived. That made them stronger, more united. And when the aliens came back, they would find a planet that was not just ready, but eager to defend itself. Roberts was the first to speak after the meeting ended. "We've won today, but tomorrow we prepare. The aliens think they can break us. They think they can destroy us. But we've shown them our power, our strength. We won't fall." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed his words. The humans had no illusions. They knew the battle for Earth was far from finished, but they were ready. They would stand united, no matter the cost. The aliens would not break them. Not now, not ever. As Earth began to rebuild, the scars of the invasion remained deep and painful, yet filled with the lessons of resilience and hope. Humanity had learned to fight back, and now, With the defeat of the alien invaders, they had proven that nothing could extinguish their spirit. In the cold, distant reaches of space, the alien fleet continued its retreat. Zither swore vengeance. But even he could not deny the truth. Earth had surprised them. And when the day came for the final showdown, Earth would not be caught unprepared again.